Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of In My Experience. Thank you guys so much for the support on my Skinwalker Ranch episode that dropped last week. I am super excited that everyone enjoyed that, and the couple of you who reached out to me to share your Skinwalker Ranch experiences was fantastic, and I'd love to hear more. So today, for our follow-up episode, I'm going to be talking about some of my other paranormal-esque experiences, as well as some of my thoughts on local ones here in Utah. I have a creepy background video playing, per usual. We're going to set the mood with some creepy background music. Perfect timing. We're going to drop me out of frame. We're going to start discussing. So to give a little bit of a backstory of my history of paranormal, when I was about a junior or sophomore in high school, my group of friends at the time, we were kind of getting into this paranormal investigating. You know, we would go to some local places and try and pretty much get scared. We weren't necessarily even filming, we were just doing it because it was something to do. And for me, it never really stopped. I always kept this interest of paranormal, this interest of trying to see if there is something else out there. I am still pretty much a skeptic, and if you want to hear my full beliefs on what paranormal is to me and afterlife and, you know, ghosts and ghouls and goblins and all that, that'll be for a different video. I don't want to get into that now. Maybe I will do a video of my personal opinions on all that. What I want to talk about today are some of the interesting things that I have actually experienced throughout my time of investigating. So I live in Utah, and there are a lot of paranormal hotspots here, just like I think every state has their own paranormal hotspots. Obviously, Skinwalker Ranch is the most popular and is the most well known across the states and pretty much Utah now as one of the creepiest and most hot places, the term that a lot of people use, like paranormal hotspot. As you know, I went over that in the first episode, so we're not going to discuss that today. What we are going to discuss is some of my favorite experiences and my most memorable ones. Also, a little bit of a controversial one that you'll see. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the Old Cottonwood Mill. If you guys aren't familiar with this one, if you live in Utah or if you're just out of the States and want to know more info, it used to be a paper mill that caught on fire in the 70s, I believe, maybe 60s. There's tons of articles about it. Several people had passed away during this, and then it stayed vacant for a while. A company came in and actually turned it into a haunted house because there were already rumors of that place being haunted. I mean, if you look at the building, it looks pretty creepy already, right? So it was a perfect place for a haunted house and the perfect place to generate some of that hype around it. Well, later down the road, the haunted house had closed down for different reasons. I don't think it was doing well. I wasn't alive during this time. This was in the 80s and maybe early 90s. And now the Old Cottonwood Mill just is vacant. And it is a very creepy place. I have been there a handful of times just because it's super close. It's in a weird spot. It's in Cottonwood Hills. If you guys are familiar with Utah, if not, you can Google it on a map. And if you don't know where it's at, it doesn't really make sense because it's right next to just a normal neighborhood, and you just drive up a street, and then boom, there it is. I'm trying to think of the most interesting thing that had happened there because there's been a couple times. If you look at the top, you see the smokestack. The first time that I ever went and investigated there, one interesting thing that happened is we were walking around the perimeter and this smokestack almost kind of lit up. And we didn't catch it on like picture or video or anything like that, but we caught it with our eyes and we all kind of were flabbergasted that We just saw a light appear at the top of it. We tried to break it down, and we honestly think that maybe there's kind of a highway road that is up on top of the hill that you see on the background. We think maybe for some reason a car would have pulled off and flashed its lights for a second. We stood there for a while trying to see if it would happen again, but it didn't. That's my closest thing to trying to debunk it, is that maybe there was a car on top of this hill that just hit the right angle and it happened to land right on the top of that smokehouse or smokestack. It's super interesting. On the back side of this building, there was a lot. I mean, it's run down, right? There's graffiti. People have broken in there. This little area that kind of looks like an old castle wall, you can actually go walk on. I mean, you can't now. It's all gated. So, I mean, if you're doing this, you have to do this either with permission, or if you're on that hooligan status, which I don't recommend, you can, obviously hop the fence and stuff. When we were there, we did get in there and walk around a little bit. We didn't go inside the building itself. One interesting thing that did happen that I still can't fully explain is on the back side of this building, there was a broken out window, but it was a pretty wide window. Almost looked like maybe it was someone's office and they wanted like a nice lookout or something like that. And we were staring there kind of like contemplating if we were going to jump the fence and go inside and like try and see if what's on the inside. And it almost looked as if someone was in there and had walked past this window a little bit. And we don't know if maybe it was same thing, maybe a reflection or not, but it put enough of a chill to all of us. And when I say all of us, I want to leave names out of this one because, jumping fences and stuff, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm incriminating them. And it put enough of a chill that we decided to get out of there pretty quickly. I think that it was probably someone in there, maybe like sleeping there, or other people investigating, they wanted to mess with us, something like that. I don't think it was paranormal. If it was it was enough of a shadow that it would have been a really big apparition, and that would have been extra scary. But it's a really cool location. I love how it looks aesthetically. If you drove past it, you'd be like, man, I bet that place is super haunted. You can go, I'm not going to do the whole history here because that could be a whole video itself, but you can go see who passed away, how they did, what caused the fire, and all that jazz. I think that the Cottonwood paper mill was one of the first locations where I was like, oh, there could be really some spooky stuff going on out there. Next, I want to talk about good old Kay's Cross. Now, Kay's Cross is kind of a staple in Utah Paranormal. It was enough of a staple that when the Ghost Adventures crew, if you're familiar with that TV show with Zach Bagans and his Baby Gap t-shirts, just kidding, love the guy, love the show. When they came to Utah to do their investigation, they did stop at Kay's Cross. Funny enough, I went to school with a kid who I would consider at the time a friend of mine, and his brother was actually he was a former FBI agent. I can't remember his first name right now, but he was the one who hosted the Fact or Faked Paranormal Files and had several other TV shows. Well, they went to Kay's Crossing and they debunked the whole light flashing off of the cross, because that was one of the things that made Kay's Cross haunting, was that there was randomly a light would flash across the cross for a lack of a better term, and people would think that was them reacting or answering questions or stuff like that. It is a hoax. Well, I don't want to say it's a hoax, but it's not paranormal. It is a very cool place to go to. Now it was monitored for a long time, and you would get trespassing tickets if you went up there, speaking from experience, and they'd pretty much just kick you out. There was a point in time where you could get permission to go and film up there, but now I believe that it's ran by someone and you pay admission prices to get in and go see Kay's Crossing. I haven't been up there for years, but it was one place that I wanted to talk about because it is a staple, but it has been debunked for the light. And the debunk was pretty much that the light was reflecting off of the freeway and hitting just the right angle multiple times, like a day, and would just hit the cross. Like it's fake. On to our next one. I can't not talk about Ted Bundy in Utah and the Viewmont house. Now, if you're from Utah, you know someone who either has a Ted Bundy story or knows someone that has a Ted Bundy story. If you guys aren't familiar with who Ted Bundy is, I guess you've been living under a rock. He's a very infamous serial killer with a very high count of murders and escaped jail, and he's pretty much the icon for serial killers. Well, one of his major stops was in Utah. He had taken a lot of lives here and harassed a lot of women. I personally do have my own Ted Bundy story of my great-grandma's neighbor. Her daughter is one of the bodies that they were never able to find. And it's super tragic and very... still to this day, it's sad. It's still to this day, like, I think about it and think about how my grandma was walking around during that time, and she could have been a victim as well. And, you know, my great-grandma could have potentially seen Ted Bundy at night. It's super creepy to think about. But that's not what we're going to discuss today. We're going to discuss the Viewmont house. That is what we call it locally. This is actually only maybe 8 to 10 minutes away from where I'm at right now. Why it's called the Viewmont house is there is a Viewmont high school, and it's really close to this house. And from the stories, Ted Bundy had taken victims to this house, and that's where they were murdered. And it is known to be a very paranormal place. Again, not trying to cover what Ghost Adventures did, but they also went here and did a whole entire investigation. Now, as a kid, you drive past this and you hear all the stories, your curiosity peaks. And I have been in this house several times. Now it's got full security, like cameras, like live cameras, and you can't just sneak in there anymore. The couple times that I did go in there, it was mostly just like silly kids doing silly things, and we would get spooked by pretty much anything. The one time that I did go in there, I had a really interesting experience with like just what was around in the area. I think people liked to mess with everyone else because there was like bloody rags and weird like baby dolls hanging from like hooks and stuff from the ceiling and all this weird stuff. And I don't know if I assumed that it was just people trying to, you know, scare the next person who tries to go in or something along those lines. But it was definitely a moment because it's one of the first places a lot of people locally go to experience like paranormal. And I think this was my first real, like as a young kid, my first experience trying to go and investigate something paranormal. But I wanted to throw that in there because obviously Ted Bundy everyone knows about, and you know people like hearing local stories of it. Next is something a little bit different that I have. I personally have a couple stories, and I'm going to tell a story of two of my really close friends. Now, Dugway Proving Ground is out in the West Desert of Utah, and if you're into UFO mythology and all that type of stuff, a lot of people have considered Dugway to be the new Area 51. Now, there are some compelling evidence on why people think that. One, there is a ginormous supercomputer out there, and no one knows why. It's super remote. There is a lot of ground that is owned by Dugway Proving Grounds, which is a government facility. They do atomic bomb, or they did atomic bomb testing, and they still do bomb testing in general out there. And one thing that is super weird is if you want to go and venture down Google Earth and search all of Dugway's land and all the stuff that's out there, you're going to see some weird stuff. The land stretches a lot more than you think, and there is just buildings and structures and different things like that that just don't quite make sense out there. When this really started getting hyped up as a potential Area 51, like the second Area 51, Area 52, whatever you want to call it, there was a TV show that was like UFO hunters or something like that, and they went out there and investigated, and that's when they found like the whole Men in Black thing, where individuals in really nice black suits were like spying on these guys. If you go out there now, there's, we'll use deadly force if you get on the base type of situation. And it does in fact have a weird vibe. I've been out there maybe 30 or 40 times because I go out there for different things. There's geobeds. You can go dig for geodes out in the West Desert, Topaz Mountain. You can actually go like dig for topaz in the mountain. It's a great place to ride four-wheelers. It's a good place to go shooting if you're into that. And then obviously Dugway. If you believe in UFOs, there is no light pollution out there, and you can see the night sky, and it's beautiful, and you might see something interesting, because it just really depends on how deep you get into the UFO theories and what you believe. But if you think that the U.S. government has potential vehicles that might be not from our planet, maybe they would do the testing out there. Who knows? But I'm going to give a couple of my interesting experiences. I have seen stuff in the sky that is questionable, but that's always up for interpretation. The first weird one was I was with a group of friends. I'm only going to name Forrest and Chandler because I talk about them a lot. They've been on the podcast. Forrest was my co-host for a long time. If you guys are new to this channel, you can go back and see them and kind of get an idea of who they are. And then we were out there with two other people who I won't name just because I don't know if they care or not. And we were kind of parked not far from the main gate of like the main entrance to Dugway, where a lot of like the workers go through and whatnot. And it's like, I don't know, it's past midnight. We're out there just being silly, being dumb kids, and trying to see if we could see anything. And I drove a dark blue Mazda 6. I guess that's really not really important to the story, but we were sitting kind of by the gate on the dirt road a little bit, and one of the people we were with had to go out and go to the restroom. So they hopped out of the car and started doing their thing or whatever. And the people in the car, we heard like a thump, like something hit the side of the car that they were out, peeing or whatever. And so I was like, "Hey, why did you hit the car?" And they're like, "I didn't do that." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "Yeah, I didn't do that. I heard it though." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I don't know what it was. So she hurried and scrambled and got back into the car. And as we're sitting there, we have the windows rolled down. It sounded like the closest thing that I could compare it to was like if someone threw a dirt clod at the side of my car. Like it sounded like something hit, and this was on the opposite side, like my side now, because she was on the passenger side, like backseat passenger side had gotten out, and something hit that side, and then it sounded like something just hit my side, like not, and it's not windy out, like there's not things that are flying in the air. It sounded like there was someone in like sagebrush and was messing with us and threw like a dirt clot at my car. And I was kind of like, what the fuck? So I got out and looked, and I couldn't really see any marks. I mean, it's pitch black outside. And I sat there for a second, and I like, being dumb, I was like, is anyone there? And I didn't get a response. I still to this day don't know what that one was about. It was kind of a little eerie. I just, who knows? Who knows, right? Maybe it was just someone messing. Maybe it was not a dirt clot. Maybe it was just, who knows? Maybe my car was just making weird noises. Another experience that I had that was really, really creepy was I was actually out with my parents, and we have four-wheelers, and we like to go four-wheeling out in that area. And we don't really ride together, so I kind of took off in my own direction. And my favorite thing to go do is, like, I'm good with directions, so I don't get lost. But I like to, quote-unquote, go get lost in the woods or go get lost in the mountains. And I was just cruising around, and I found myself kind of back towards, like, one of the gates of Dugway, and I had stopped, like, I think I peed too, like, took a leak or whatever, and was just kind of hanging out. I was taking pictures, and because I used to do, like, photography and stuff, I was taking some pictures. And I see what looks like, I don't know what kind of car I want to, or what kind of SUV I want to call it. My first thought, I thought it was like a black Cadillac, but I don't think it was. Some sort of black SUV was on the opposite side of the fence, maybe about 200 yards away from me. And I just kind of was like, okay, well, whatever. Well, I did the dumb thing of flipping my camera around and taking a picture of it, which I have somewhere. I should have prepared it for this. And I don't know if maybe they were watching me or what the deal was, but they turned on that car and took off. I thought that they were going to come to me. Maybe they had to go out the base and come to me, but I didn't wait around because I didn't hear the car start. All I saw was like that car, he hit the gas and started driving. Now, if I were to give you like directions, I was looking north, right? And they were just kind of parked on a vertical, no, it would have been like a horizontal road facing east and west. Like the road was east or west, and I was looking north. And they hit that gas and they started driving, and it looked like maybe they were going towards like some sort of opening in the gate or whatever to like come to me, maybe, or I don't know. But I took the picture, and within like seconds of taking the picture, they started moving. So I was kind of like, and like at this whole time, this wasn't long ago. I knew everything about Dugway. Like I took the picture because like this is creepy. This is what they talked about on that TV show of like men in black vehicles, unmarked vehicles, like weird government shit. So I took the picture because I wanted it. And I decided to not stick around because that seemed like a bad idea. So I hopped on my four-wheeler and I hauled ass out of there, and I went back to where we were parked, which was maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, maybe like 10 minutes away. And I told my dad the story because he's really into that too and all that jazz. And as we were packing up for the day, the entrance, or like we went back through the gate and we saw another black SUV just kind of chilling near like the Dugway entrance. And like I was like, oh my god, like that's the one. And I was worried that they were gonna like try and stop us or something, and they didn't, but still super, super creepy. Now I want to tell two different stories. One of my two good friends that I mentioned earlier, Forrest and Chandler, and then one of a more well-known story. So the well-known story is super interesting, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the story I want to tell about my two friends. How the well-known story goes is a gentleman was out near Dugway, and he had decided to pull over and I don't know all the details, but he decided to pull over because, like, if you're going to Dugway, right, you take an exit on highway or the I-80, and then you drive out on like a paved road, like it's a paved road, maybe like an hour. I think it's an hour and a half drive, maybe a little less on this paved road, and then you hit Dugway. You hit this picture that's on the screen. I'm gonna get rid of so you can watch this creepy stuff. You hit, and then you hit Dugway's area. Well, this story goes that this gentleman had decided to park late at night, like maybe halfway to the Dugway opening gate. And as he was parking, he said that he remembers a lot of like government vehicles and military vehicles driving past him. And next thing you know, he says he remembers waking up maybe 5 or 6 hours later. But the weird part about this is he claims that all this stuff seemed like it was gone through in his car, and he remembers having his seatbelt on, and his seatbelt was 100% off. Who knows? Right? Did they stop and mess with this guy? Did they do something? Well, the reason why I told that story is to tie into what happened to my two friends. Now, I've talked about them in a little bit earlier. I talked about them in the Skinwalker Ranch video. We look at each other as we all want the same thing. We want evidence of something weird. I don't think that they made this story up. I'm willing to put my reputation out there for it. Maybe that'll bite me in the butt later. I don't know. At least my reputation as a paranormal investigator. What they said had happened, because like for a long time, we would just go out to the West Desert to hang out. It's quiet, it's out of the way, like you can drink some brews, get rowdy, like just have some fun. And those two decided to go out there one night to just kind of, I don't know, chill, see if they can see anything creepy. And they made a point when they told me this story that they had been drinking energy drinks and like coffee, and they weren't super tired. And they parked, I don't know, kind of close by the gate or whatever. And they said at some point during the night while they were hanging out there, they had both passed out together. Like they had both fallen asleep what seemingly must have been the same exact time. And they both had woken up at what seemed to be the same exact time. And when they tell this story, they said that they weren't tired, they weren't drowsy, they didn't pull over because they wanted to take a nap, and that's not why they were out there. But I do find it weird that something like this has happened now to two different groups of people. Like, that they seemingly just passed out of nowhere without being tired or without wanting to sleep. Is it possible to think that maybe people who are working at Dugway have some sort of, I don't know, some sort of, I hate using chemical weapon, but some sort of chemical thing that they can put out in the air and make sure that the people out there aren't some sort of spies or something crazy? Like they aren't trying to get evidence of weird stuff going on at Dugway? I think it's possible. Forrest also claims to have had people show up at his work in like black unmarked vehicles, and the weirdest one that had ever happened is he worked at like a detail bay, and someone came in asking for him, and when he went up to the door, the guy was like, "Oh, hey, I got this phone book for you." And Forrest was like, "What?" And he's like, yeah, I'm delivering a phone book to you. Super creepy, I know, right? Like, why would someone come deliver a phone book at a place of business to an individual? Really creepy stories. I don't know what I think about Dugway. I think that there's definitely... I mean, it's a government facility with very high security, and, you know, they claim that they will use deadly force if you go on the base. Alright, we're going to conclude this with a super controversial paranormal thing that has many, many different opinions. I have my own opinions on it, and I always feel weird talking about it, and that is a Ouija board. I really don't believe in Ouija boards, okay? I don't think that they're real, and I mean, Hasbro makes them, for God's sake, right? Like, I think it's a toy, I think it's all mental, but I need to share a couple experiences. I've had some weird stuff happen when playing with the Ouija board, and I just don't know what they were. First and foremost, the craziest thing that has ever happened to me that I cannot explain, aside from the Skinwalker Ranch stuff, is my friend Forrest and I were at his house, the house that he grew up in, that already had some weird stuff, weird stories about it. We had gone this whole night doing the Ouija board, going to different places, playing it, trying to see something. And me and him had made a mutual agreement that we're not going to fuck with each other because it just kind of ruins the whole point. And we were like 6 hours in of Ouija boarding in all these different places and nothing had happened. Fast forward to his house. It was me, him, and then there was like 3 or 4 friends who were on the couch with us. And me and him broke out the Ouija board and started doing it, and nothing really happened. Out of nowhere, it starts moving, so we start asking questions, and it doesn't seem to be answering questions. Like, it wasn't giving us answers, it was just moving. And then it stopped. Now, if you are a firm believer in the Ouija board and the occult around the Ouija board, you know that there's very specific rules that you're supposed to follow. Well, we didn't follow those rules, and I can't remember the exact order because this was maybe 6 or 7, maybe even longer years ago. I remember taking my fingers off the little planchette, and Forrest took his fingers off of it, and that planchette flew off the table, flew off the Ouija board, flew off the table about 2 or 3 feet. Like, it flew off the table and like fell on the floor and tumbled. Like it was thrown, like it was pushed off the table. I'm hold on, let me. I still get, maybe you can't see it. I still get the chills. I still get the chills thinking about it till this day. I don't know, man. I don't know what that was about. I still try and... I think Ouija board, a lot of it is your mind starts playing tricks on you. So maybe one of us just did it because our mind wanted us to do it. I don't know. I still don't really think the Ouija board is anything, but I can't deny that weird experience. I can't. It happened. It was creepy. It was super creepy. And I don't know if it was us just mentally doing it, if it was paranormal, if it was a demon, if it was someone trying to contact us from a different dimension, or, you know, someone had passed away and they still have something to say. I don't know. But all I can say is both of us and the people who are in that room witnessed that planchette fly off that table. And I don't think it was either of us, because it seems like it would be so obvious to know if it was one of us. And we both looked at each other like, what the fuck just happened? The second one, I'm going to break out my webcam again and kind of show you as an example. This involved me, Forrest, Chandler was there. He was kind of the person this revolved around in this one. And then there was 4 or 5 other of my friends. And we were just messing with the Ouija board, being dumb, being silly. I have a picture of that night somewhere on my computer, so maybe if I can find it, I'll post it on my Instagram later. it was just a fun night. I think we were, you know, drinking, doing dumb shit or whatever. So we were messing with the Ouija board, and there was kind of some history to this house. I don't want to use anyone's names because there was some personal stories, some super personal stories that revolved around this house that I don't want to share. And needless to say, there was an experience with one individual and him taking a picture and there being a potential apparition of someone that they knew. I've seen the picture. It is super creepy. It if you're a paranormal person, that picture is some real evidence. I will not share that picture because the story behind it is not mine to tell and isn't something that I'm going to put out there. If that individual ever wants to, they're more than happy to put it out there. To harken back to where I was going with this, we were playing with the Ouija board, and we asked the Ouija board to, like, I don't know, we were like, show us that you're here, tell us that you're here, do something to, you know, show that you're with us. And the plan chat wasn't moving. So Chandler, who at this point in time refused to play with the Ouija board, and I have friends who are like that. Manuel, who has been on my podcast a bunch, you can go check that out, refuses to touch it. Okay, I'm going to ball this up and kind of show you what happened. So Chandler had a wrapper straw, or a straw, what did I just, the wrapper to a straw from like a drink, like a beverage. And he was not touching the Ouija board, but he came over and he's all like, I'm going to put this in my hand, if you guys can see that, and I want someone to move it. Okay. Within a couple of seconds, Chandler goes pale white, and all you see is his fingers go like this. Like someone like had bent his fingers back. You're getting the chills again, because I was right next to him. I have never seen a human being in my life turn as bright white as he did. I don't know if he just wasn't expecting anything to happen. And we all sat there and tried to mimic what he did. It looked like his fingers bent back like this. And like, I personally can't do that. Like, I can't bend my fingers like that. Let me see if I can maybe point down a little bit. Like, his fingers were straight and they just kind of, and the little wrapper that he was in just kind of popped out of his hand. Like, it like pulled down. So like, if you can't see my finger, like pretend it's not there, like pulled down off. And we all freaked out. We all lost our mind. We don't know, like, that was a moment for me where I was like, I contemplated everything. Because up to that point, like, I've been to places, like, I already saw like, this was after the Cottonwood paper mill thing. Like, I had been to Dugway at this point. The forest thing had happened with us both on the Ouija board, but I was still like, I don't think anything is out there. I think this Ouija board's bullshit. That was the moment where I was like, maybe there is something else going on. What that is, I don't know. Do I think it's what like society thinks ghosts are? Absolutely not. I don't think that there is some sort of someone who hasn't passed on or hasn't done any of that. And I'm in a weird situation because I also don't believe in a lot of things, which I don't want to get into in this video. I want to keep this video strictly what it is. But after that moment, I had told myself, I'm going to continue to investigate paranormal, kind of chasing after that creepy moment and see if I will ever come across anything quite like that. And up to this point, I still haven't, but I'm still going out. I'm still doing Ouija board stuff from time to time, and I'm still trying to see if maybe there is something more than meets the eye. And only time will tell. I want to thank you guys so much for spending your time with me watching this episode. I hope you enjoy it. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. This is what I've always wanted to do my whole life, make videos, try and tell my stories, have people watch and at least be a little entertained. If there's anything that you would like to hear from me, please let me know. You can find me on all my social medias if you want to reach out, if you want to be a part of this. If you have paranormal stories you want to tell me, we will set that up one way or the other. If you guys enjoy the content, you know what everyone always says. Drop a like, subscribe, it helps me out. When we get to a point where I can do this full time, we're going to be pumping out some wild, wild content. We will be traveling and going to all the paranormal places and spending a lot of time there trying to prove if there is something out there. Again, thank you guys so much. All the subscribers, everyone viewing. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.